Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Court-Martail Podcast. Introducing your host for this evening first. He is the host with the most from the West Coast, the Bay Area Brawler, Skylar Greenberg. And his partner, he has colonized, energized, and revolutionized the podcasting wrestling world today. Your Colonial champion, Sean McCarty. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and or girls, to the Court-Martail Podcast, the only place to find the hottest talk about professional wrestling in all of the internet today. I am your Colonial champion, Sean McCarty, here to break down what is actually a regular show, which is the first time we've had one of these in a good month and change. We're going to talk about a match of the week. We've got ourselves a very interesting topic. We've got ourselves some hot news, and we're going to spotlight a wrestler who, by all accounts, should be bigger than he is if it weren't for WWE being who they are. But to break all of that down with me, the man of the hour, the man with the power, too sweet to be sour, he is the Bay Area Brawler himself, Mr. Skylar Greenberg. How you doing, my friend?
What? Something happens? Professional wrestling? Something like that?
Basically, I know we've been kind of absorbed in the bubble that we burst of modern wrestling, and we've now removed ourselves from the contemporary wrestling tropes that have permeated and saturated and just overall just left soggy and greasy and rotten and inedible the modern wrestling scene. But we had to dive back into it a little bit to discuss what we have to discuss. But you, Skylar, you are the holder, the king who reigns upon the throne of the most contemporary of news. And that news is something that we have to share, whether we want to hear it or not. It's the only way we stay current. And speaking of current, coming in like a riptide, roll that intro, baby. Coming straight to you from the Golden Gate Garage, this is the WrestleNews with Skylar Greenberg.
Yeah, news of the week.
All right, well, from whirlpool to splash.
Okay, let me just go ahead and get out of the way, okay? Modern wrestling disappoints me.
That's a light way of putting it.
Now when we talk about the news, it just gets sad.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we get started?
Let's do it. It's hopefully we'll go from Magikarp using Splash to Gyarados using Waterfall, but we'll see how it goes.
Oh, I always taught my guy Gyarados Hydro Pump. But anyways, we're going to go to the land of AEW and check in with Mr. Kahn's company.
All right, well, what do you got for us? I'm afraid.
So, the Mr. Kahn and the Japanese, a.k.a. New Japan Pro Wrestling, have agreed to a shared pay-per-view.
I heard about this, and I know that they've been doing some talent échangé in the past couple of episodes of Dynamite and Rampage. Skylar, I probably already know the answer to this question, but I'll pose it to you anyway. Do you think they're going to gain any viewers from this partnership or pay-per-view?
No.
Do you think that anyone who is beyond the group of people that Tony Khan has already hoodwinked into believing that this show is good just by the fact that it's not WWE will give a flying fuck that they're doing anything with New Japan Pro Wrestling?
That's kind of an oxymoron, isn't it?
Well, with the emphasis on moron, because obviously these AEW fans did not get enough oxygen at birth. Otherwise, they might have realized just how garbage this show is. And my final question I pose to you, sir, is do you think that the fans of New Japan are going to want to watch more New Japan after traveling across the pond to do work with AEW?
Not really.
So what the fuck is this for?
I mean, again, this is to appeal to the smart fans of AEW who say, "Oh my God, Japanese wrestlers are the best wrestlers of all time." And wouldn't it be amazing to see AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling collaborate on something? Because WWE would never do it because WWE is in their own shared thing.
Unless it's Mickie James because they don't have enough people in the Women's Royal Rumble and they need to bring somebody in.
Okay, we can debate about the whole idea of WWE should collaborate more with other professional wrestling companies.
True.
Which is a very valid point.
No,
That's
it is.
Conversation for another day.
It is.
The whole thing with this is that the pay-per-view is called AEW X New Japan Pro Wrestling Forbidden Door.
Yeah, as in anyone who has not watched AEW or New Japan up to this point is forbidden from understanding why they're doing this.
I mean, the potential for matches that could happen with New Japan and AEW working together would actually be kind of cool, and it would lead to kind of like the whole Survivor Series. It could lead to different matchups that we've never seen before. But again, is it not the company softball game just now taking with a Japanese company?
Yeah, it's basically when American baseball and Japanese baseball did collaborations, which they do still occasionally. It's basically, but because this is not as big scale as WWE, you know, as far as the amount of threat that AEW poses, this feels more like the Little League World Series than it does the WCW World Cup that they did in '95 that Eddie Guerrero won, by the way, when they did the New Japan and WCW wrestlers have 7 matches on one pay-per-view.
Exactly the point.
I
mean, that's the thing, is that we could legitimately see some great wrestlers like Ishii, Okada, Takahashi, Kota Ibushi wrestle against. I mean,
what do you think
again,
the most appealing match
endless.
is? What do you think the most appealing match would be if in this pay-per-view? What do you think is top draw AEW versus New Japan Pro Wrestling?
Do you want my answer or the Smarks answer?
I want your answer. What would it take for them to give you something that you'd be genuinely interested in watching?
Okada versus CM Punk.
Anything else?
Bryan Danielson versus Tanahashi?
Now, see, if we had any sort of understanding whether Danielson is a heel or a babyface at this point, then my interest would probably be in Danielson Naito.
That would also be pretty good.
But there's not much other than, I think, when it comes to the fetishistic way that the Meltzerites are promoting this thing, what they're really looking for is a U.S. soiled Okada Omega. Tell me that that's not what they're trying to do here.
Pretty much. I mean, again, this is the whole thing. This is AEW Playland with Tony Khan and the AEW Galaxy.
The action figures. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We got to talk about that. Hey, would you like to break it down for the people?
It's not a big thing. It's just that Tony Khan and AEW has trademarked AEW Galaxy as the name for their fans, and Vince McMahon is winning in every conceivable way.
You can't just call them fans. You have to downgrade your celestial body. We're not a universe because that's huge. We're the galaxy. How to say we're not as big as WWE without coming out and saying it? God damn it. The incompetence is soaring, folks. It really is.
Shall we continue?
Please, please.
You know the whole situation involving Sammy Guevara and Ty Conti and their very, very quick heel turn?
Because they were slutty on the TNT belt, and then all the AEW neckbeards were like, Ty Conti's hot, and I don't have hot, so I don't like you now.
The more realistic scuttlebutt with that situation is that because of what's been going on recently with Sammy Guevara getting with Ty Conti after he was engaged to another woman, and Ty Conti leaving her partner for Sammy Guevara.
Yeah.
And then the general attitude that they have, the smarminess of it. I mean, actually, they're a very good couple as a heel tag team, right?
I mean, I don't watch anything they do, but I've heard good things about the fact that they're heels now. Sammy Guevara was always a good heel.
Yep, when he has something to do.
When he has something to do.
Here's the thing. They beat Scorpio Sky for the TNT title. He holds it for a couple of weeks, and then he drops the TNT title to Scorpio Sky in a ladder match.
They've got to give up the Scorpio Sky experiment because it's not working. Continue? Yeah, no, please do. I'm just saying Scorpio Sky ain't worth $1. He was the third most important person in SCU, and when they broke up, nobody gave a fuck what he was doing. Continue.
And Sammy Guevara was injured doing a 630 off the ladder.
And this is to the surprise of nobody, because we all thought he was just going to end up killing himself.
AEW, you literally, had 1 week build to a TV title match involving ladders with two guys who are not particularly hot right now, and you're having them do 630s off the ladders and injuring themselves?
Because they have no restraint. Tony Khan doesn't know how to say no, and he doesn't know how to book, clearly. And because he's booking the way that I did when I was 14 running National Wrestling Entertainment. Stay tuned for the story behind that. Because there's a lot of parallels in the bullshittery, except this is a grown-ass human being who does not really care about the athlete's well-being and welfare. Remember when they were going to have health insurance?
Remember when they were going to have a union?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good times, Tony Khan. You're killing it, bro. Or you're killing them, but you're killing it.
Now, the whole thing, by the way, I should mention that they're going to have a pay-per-view before that Forbidden Door thing called Double or Nothing. The main event is Hangman Adam Page defending the AEW World title against CM Punk.
Oh, if Punk loses that match, I mean, I'm not watching it, and clearly you're not watching it, so we'll get some sort of recap in the news, or if Josh again wants to fill us in on what the deal is. But when it comes to Double or Nothing, I'm going to take nothing. Because I can't stand double.
I would watch the show and watch that main event if the rest of the show was good. But it's not.
But it won't be. And, and like we said, Sky, if there's a match that blows everything out of the water, I don't mind going back and watching a match. But I'm not watching a full-blown AEW show after the shit that they pulled on television with the Crown of Thorns bullshit and and again, Sammy Guevara is just another example of that full-blown stupidity that they're putting on TV on a regular basis. How long until the plug is pulled? Yeah.
Sometime in the next 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years is kind of generous. It depends on how quickly somebody dies in the ring doing something stupid.
Oh, yeah.
Or worse, it could be just something so unbelievably offensive that somebody in the new Turner Broadcasting, Warner Brothers Discovery just decides that they're going to be like, nope, you're done. And kick him out faster than the first week of Hell's Kitchen.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we pretty much summed that one up, didn't we?
I mean, well, again, I want to have hope for AEW because they're the first non-WWE company besides Impact to exist to eventually somewhat survive on national TV.
Yep. Tony Khan makes it really hard to like him.
Exactly.
It's just, he's so stupid. He's so genuinely stupid. And my biggest problem with him, and then I'll let you say what you were going to say, my biggest problem with him is he has had 3 years to learn how to do this right, and somehow it's gotten worse.
Oh, yeah.
How?
Oh, yeah.
How? When you have that many talented people to show you how to do this, is it that you just don't care? Is it just that you genuinely think what you're doing is the best thing? Or are you just that much of a moron that you don't want to listen to the people who've done this correctly and know how to do this correctly and want this to be a successful show? Indeed. I agree with your sigh of exasperation.
But here's the thing. We go from AEW to WWE.
Yeah, Jim Cornette likes to say from the penthouse to the outhouse, but this is from the outhouse to the other outhouse.
We're going to the outhouse's developmental program, where they just released 10 people. And you know what that means.
Roll it! So you've been released by the WWE. Best of luck in your future endeavors. You've been released by the WWE. And now you gotta go wrestle for Impact. You've been released by the WWE. Best of luck in your future endeavors. You've been released by the WWE. Damn, and now what? Pal. You gotta wrestle for Impact. Impact. And you know that pay gon' be so low.
Alrighty, April 29th. WWE NXT released 10 people from their developmental program. Now, Sean, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Do you have the owls ready?
Here I am sitting in the owlry just waiting to release them into the public to give their people their Hogwarts letters. So go for it.
Because you know when I say a name, there's going to be a lot of whoo.
I believe it. Let's hear these names of definitely over people that they're going to be sorry they lost.
Blair Baldwin.
That's a terrible name for a wrestler.
So, Owl? Woo!
Oh, definitely Owl. We're up to one Owl.
Again, listen to these names and you tell me how bad they are. Raylan Divine?
Also terrible.
Woo! Mila Mullen?
God damn. Who's coming up with these names?
Draco Anthony?
I mean, that one's a little bit better, but who's gonna be world champion Draco Anthony?
Sanjay George?
What a weirdly American last name for a weirdly Indian first name.
Okay, now we can get to some of the more known names. I think those 5 are just like performance enhancement talents.
Yeah, definitely people who I don't even think any of them made television, did they?
No.
No. Good luck.
Well, they'll keep the owls on standby because they're going to sing who a lot. Persia Panotti?
Ooh!
Harland.
That's it?
Now here's the thing. The name is Harland. His actual name is Parker Boudreaux. He's most famous for being the Brock Lesnar clone guy that they signed.
Hey, wow. He must have been really bad.
Well, are you ready to hear some quotes from Mr. Uncle Meltzer so he can tell you?
Oh, I'm sure that his information is completely factual and non-biased in every way.
All right, let me go and read it. I'm a little surprised because he's a big guy. They want big guys. Football player. They like football players. But they also have a deal where they give you a little bit of time and they have so many people. And if you don't show improvement in their minds, in the coaches' minds, or you have a bad attitude or whatever the thing is, they figure they got an assembly line full of people that can take your spots.
Well, that is their attitude. And I'm guessing this guy was either the absolute drizzling shits or he ended up like ZZ. Remember ZZ? Who now wrestles alligators or whatever the fuck? There was a Vice show on him. That's a fact.
Let me go ahead and continue.
Yes, please.
And in this case, I was surprised that he was put on television as quickly as he was, because I remember not all that long ago he was put on television. There was some stuff regarding like who's a hard worker, who's not a hard worker, who's going to make it, who's not.
Well,
may I continue?
Yeah, keep going.
Bronson Resteiner, Braun Breaker, and Jacob Casper, Julius Creed, those were the ones I was told, like, they're the ones that are going to make it, and they're going to be big stars. And when it came to Boudreaux, it was not favorable at all, as far as, like, anything. And that's why I was surprised they brought him up on TV with very little training, because he wasn't ready for TV, and he wasn't a rapidly improving guy like those other guys were. And there were other things that they weren't so hot on him.
Yeah, he must have been the drizzling shits. Probably couldn't even run the ropes right. But you know what? You've got a guy like Omos on the main roster, so I don't know whether that's really a qualifier anymore.
I mean, again, they have so many prospects. If you don't show up and you don't show out and you don't improve, and if you have other things that are taking you down,
It's a recipe for disaster. And you know, to WWE's credit, which I don't like to do, but when you think about how they just laid the axe to like 60 people, with the exception of like the NXT personnel and like Samoa Joe, a lot of those guys that WWE cut, they're not necessarily hurting that they've lost them.
exactly. Here's another one: Dexter Lumis.
Now, that one is kind of a shame because I don't think he's the worst. I didn't hate his Sam Shaw. I think he's been stymied with horrible gimmicks his entire career. And I think that's really held him back in a lot of ways. It's almost not even his fault that he ended up being so non-valuable to them or to Impact or to anywhere else he's been. Remember when he was stalking Mickie James?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, can this guy just be given like a basic, just a basic gimmick with a basic role where he could just do his wrestling and just get over like a regular human being?
Yeah. And then let's see here. Malcolm Bivens, aka Stokely Hathaway, known on the independent scene as a manager.
I actually I've heard his name. I've never seen any of his work.
Most of the stuff is at Evolve, so whatever.
All right, so you take that with a grain of salt.
The biggest name is Dakota Kai.
Well, what have they been doing with her lately?
She recently won the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships with Raquel Gonzalez, now Raquel Rodriguez, until they lost the titles in April. Like, literally, this woman was champion, 2 weeks ago? Her last match was losing to Mandy Rose.
Well, there you go. If that doesn't say everything you need to know, that's I mean, she'll wind up in AEW's women roster, be used for a couple of shows, and then thrown back on Dark like the rest of them. So,
yeah, apparently she had been saying that she was seeing the release coming because she had indicated that she was not interested in renewing her contract.
Well, WWE sucks the absolute life and passion out of you, so I don't necessarily blame her for doing it. But it's sad that we kind of already know what her fate's going to be going forward, knowing how AEW treats all of the WWE talent, even though we're so independent. We're not WWE. Let's take literally everyone.
I mean, she could go to Maria Kanellis' new women's wrestling company.
You know, maybe she just needs to control her narrative.
Control Your Narrative doesn't have a women's division, does it?
Exactly. She could be it. She could start it.
Ooh. But yeah, again, it's the whole thing is that right now WWE is starting their own... They're hiring other people too. Like, did you see Ariana Grace?
No, I have not seen Ariana Grace. I heard her last album wasn't too bad, though.
A.K.A. Ariana Grace, a.k.a. Santino Marella's daughter, debuting on NXT.
What?
Yep.
Oh, Mr. HBK, Mr. HBK, you got to give me a match on NXT.
No. We're talking about Bianca Corelli, and her WWE name is actually not that bad.
No, it's not. It's yeah. Well, you know what? We'll see how she does. Because Santino fit in well with what WWE's style is. You know, I hope her mind is right, but given her father, I'm not positive about that. But that's what WWE is now. So, you know, you never know. You never know who somebody's going to turn into.
Also, in my personal opinion, she has a great look. She is an athlete. I don't know how far she's going to go, but we'll see what happens.
We will see what happens. Especially because they seem to be putting the eggs in the Nikita Lyons basket.
But that basket needs to be big because those thighs.
Yeah, well, there's definitely... that basket's full of bread, and it's a big old basket. But We'll see how that
the
turns
whole
out.
thing, but the whole thing, most of these releases are because of budget cuts from the man with people power.
Thanks, Laurinaitis. Thanks. Wow. The blonde with a big ass is still there, and and the people who are not blonde with a big ass have left. Who could have seen that coming?
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
I mean, the big one, though, was that Parker Boudreaux, a.k.a. the Brock Lesnar clone, was not progressing well in the ring, and he had attitude issues.
Yeah, and, maybe he'll join AEW. Maybe he'll control his narrative. Or maybe this type of guy, whether we're finished with this news cycle or not, because I know we probably have a little bit more to do, but maybe a guy like that, when he was in the ring, when he was in the gym, maybe his attitude was bad because he was listening to some garbage music. Do you think that's a possibility, Sky?
Possibly.
Well, do you think that there could have been a possibility that he could have listened to something better that's already out there and ready for him?
Maybe, but what is that thing?
Well, it might just be a new era in entertainment because it is time. It is time. It is springtime, and you know what that means. Tony, what season is it? It's a new
Jesus.
It's Jesus time. No, I'm kidding. It's a new era in entertainment time, and it has arrived. AB Productions CT is proud to drag you out of the superficial monotony and overproduced, oversimplified modern musical mud pit with two industry-busting artists springing into action and taking the world by storm. Abizzle and Knux deliver an avant-garde approach to music that blends elements and instruments of a wide number of musical styles, including but not limited to hip-hop, R&B, jazz, funk, rock, house, EDM. There's an a cappella Irish tune coming up, and so much more. It is high time for the music industry to be shaken to its core, so be a part of the foundation-breaking movement by supporting aspiring artists. And right now, as we speak, the wheels are turning. The gears are slowly rotating into the interwebs as the distribution of a new song is coming your way. Because a song Live as One. A song for all of those couples out there, all of the betrothed, or all of those people who just want to get up and dance and tell their crush that they feel for them is coming your way. It is the single for the new album from Knux entitled Just a Bit More, available October 14th. But until then, stay tuned because about a month from now, May 27th, you will hear the release of Live as One. And until then, you can catch the previous release, The Wax Apocalypse, a 32-track album that took 2 years to come together. A saga of the ages awaits your eager ears. Look for Abizzle, spelled Abizzle, or Knux, spelled White, space Knux, on SoundCloud, Apple Music, and Spotify for this and the entire AB Productions CT discography of over 100 songs and projects, including, but not limited to, Retreat, Mixed Bag, Verses from a College Grad, Bearman, Recovering, Rest Stop, and many more. All just a short click away. The link is in the description. Come join the entertainment revolution with AB Productions CT.
My man, you didn't tell me about the new song that's coming out.
That's right. I was keeping it a secret until it was done and recorded, and now it has been recorded, and we are just waiting for those distribution platforms to get it through their systems. It's being processed second by second, minute by minute, lyric by lyric, so that anyone whose name isn't Tony Khan or Vince McMahon can go at it and say, that's some good music right there. I'm not going to spend $600,000 on that only to play it 3 times and then put it back into my discography. No, sir. You are going to get a brand new song. It's coming out. We've got another 27 days from the time that we're recording this and 26 days from the time that you, the fans, are hearing this. In order to get that, so it's coming out. Stay tuned. It's going to be a great time and many more to come. Just stick around and you will not be disappointed.
Alrighty. That's very good, my man. Now, we have a couple more pieces of news I'm going to get to. Do you want to talk about WWE taking away first names?
Well, I feel like we ought to, Greenberg.
Thank you, McCarty.
Yeah.
Just Sean.
It's just Sean. It's just Sean now.
Yeah, it is officially just Ciampa, no more Tommaso.
Yeah, I hate to say I called that one, but I completely called that one.
It is no longer Mr. Robert Stone, it's just Mr. Stone.
Well, it's better than just Stone. Even though The Rock worked, but it's a little different.
Yeah, but it was Dwayne The Rock Johnson was a nickname.
True. Well, until he got more over than Rover, and then it just became The Rock. But
The Rock says blanc blanc.
Yeah, indeed he does.
But yeah, this is part of WWE's thing of getting rid of people's actual first names because they don't want them to be trademarked and then have to deal with guys who potentially could get over to the point where they leave with their names.
Well, that's a pretty valid theory, Sky.
Basically, WWE doesn't want to create another Rock or another Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, which we've known for a long
John
time.
Cena.
Yeah,
or another John Cena.
Exactly. We've known that for a long time, and you know, another one, you know, I kind of alluded to it just a second ago, but no more Austin Theory. It's just Theory. Hooray.
Edge versus Theory. Edge Theory.
Well, I could give you an Edge Theory, but that might not be appropriate for YouTube.
That sounds like the name of a band that Josh was going to start any day now.
Edge Theory, that's a good band name.
Josh, again, if you trademark Edge Theory and use that as your band name, you better be paying me the royalty.
Oh. Well, let's see if he makes money off Edge Theory first before you start asking for royalties. But
it's just like Apple. You got to make sure you get in on the early parts.
That's right.
Speaking of getting in early, on May 18th, tickets will go on pre-sale for WWE's first event in the United Kingdom in years, WWE Clash at the Castle in Cardiff, Wales.
What do you think is going to be the main event of that show?
If they involve Tyson Fury versus Drew McIntyre, or Drew McIntyre wrestling as champion against somebody, or wrestling for the title.
I could see that.
Because right now, the whole thing is that they're teasing a Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns feud right now. They're doing a 6-man tag at WrestleMania Backlash with RK Bro and Drew McIntyre versus the Bloodline.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that.
If only they had a little bit of Dynasty in there. Shameless plug.
I know. Yeah, if you want to... Well, I was going to say that AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling are kind of infringing on our vowel assimilation of ACPW and NWL. But I didn't want to make that comparison, but, you know, if the shoe fits.
Yeah. But, I mean, again, this is really cool, though, because Clash at the Castle is actually a very cool name.
It's not bad. It's better than some of the pay-per-view names that they've come up with recently, like Great Balls of Fire and Fatal 4-Way.
Stomping Grounds.
Yes. Yeah, oh, yes, I forgot about Stomping Grounds. How about Capital Punishment? That was a good one. Where they had a caricature of Obama, even though he wasn't there.
Ugh.
Good times. Good times. Maybe.
Anyways, let's just get out of this way. I'm tired of modern wrestling. I'm tired of the bullshit. And here's the thing. With the Clash of the Castle, we could get that Tyson Fury-Drew McIntyre match. And what would it be, Sean?
Well, before we
Another
jump...
celebrity
match. Well, yeah. Which we've gotten plenty of. And unfortunately, I don't think Tyson Fury is as adept at being a heel as Logan Paul was. But before we jump into that, I got one more thing to mention in the news. Just a tiny addendum in there, even though she wasn't wearing jeans. This past Monday night on Raw, Asuka came back. Get excited.
There's a reason why I didn't mention her, and that's because I don't care.
Me either. But I thought you should all know she came in, did her kabuki thing, and interrupted Becky Lynch's, "Oh, I'm at rock bottom," even though I call it the manhandle slam now. And she went, "You not ready for Asuka?" And then they're going to have another match like they have 108 times before. Get hyped.
Remember when you said I would actually like to see Asuka?
Yeah, and then she went to the main roster.
No. She was gone for the longest time, and you were like, "You know what? I miss Asuka. Now that she's come back, we don't miss her anymore."
Well, yeah, because if she had done something different, then maybe I'd be interested in her. But no, she came back and did the exact same thing she always did, so who gives a shit?
But anyways, let's
Save us, Bayley.
Let's get back to
Save us, Bayley. That's what WWE needs right now.
Yeah.
And before I start drinking Baileys, because I'm so depressed about the state of modern wrestling, let's talk about a big reason why we're in this position. WWE is not the only one to have done this, but they've definitely been the ones who set the precedent for it being on a major stage. And that's celebrity matches with celebrities, which would make sense because I graduated from the department of the redundancy department. So, from WrestleMania 1 until WrestleMania 38, we have had quite a lot of celebrity involvement in WWE, but it's not just them who have made these things happen. Of course, the first I can remember of the major ones would be Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler. But that at least was an angle where Kaufman respected the business and he didn't do anything that was outside of what he should be doing. But since then, it's gotten way out of control.
It has. I mean, professional wrestling has always sought mainstream attention, and the way to get mainstream attention is to just have people come in and just do stuff. It's one of those things where it's the mixing of professional wrestlers and celebrities that will get eyeballs on the wrestling.
Yeah, which, it's interesting because there was a time back in the 40s and 50s where the celebrities were the wrestlers. And the wrestlers were just as synonymous with celebrities as far as mainstream appeal. I think to a old wrestler called Wild Red Berry, who was part of the Los Angeles and the California promotion in the 40s and 50s. I remember seeing a really good 2 out of 3 falls match with him and babyface Classy Freddie Blassie from like 52. And Wild Berry ended up being in quite a lot of movies after that and became something of a celebrity class in and of himself. Lou Albano, another big one because he was so big in Vincent J's WWF, and then he ended up getting such illustrious roles like Mario in the Mario TV show.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's a throwback. If you've watched that old Mario show, that show was hilarious. Mostly because of Captain Lou. But there was a time when the wrestlers were on par with celebrities, but then we got into the craziness of it. But really, it was Vincent K who had the major idea of incorporating them as wrestlers.
Yep, and the way they would do it was the biggest one of them all at the first. WrestleMania 1, the tag team match, Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff versus Hulk Hogan and Mr. T.
What do you think about that match, Sky? I assume you've seen it.
Well, again, the whole reason why they came out is because Hulk Hogan had a part as Thunder Lips in that Rocky movie.
That's definitely a part of it. And boy, his lips are thunderous, but mostly with lies nowadays. But that's a story for another time.
I mean, it's 3 wrestlers trying to cover up for Mr. T.
Well, and Roddy was notorious for his hatred of Mr. T. But at least to Mr. T's credit, he respected the business enough to defend kayfabe. And he really did try to make it seem as though he, all of it was, he respected kayfabe enough to respect the business.
Yeah, and again, Roddy Piper and Mr. T not only did it at WrestleMania 1, but they had the boxing match at WrestleMania 2.
Which might go down as one of the worst WrestleMania matches of all time if it weren't for another celebrity match we're going to bring up in a minute.
Okay, fair enough.
But it was not that good. it was not.
Right.
But
and then it began the series of WWE involving different celebrity people on their TV shows,
which they did fairly regularly. Now, a big part of this is how do you present these people, right? Because if they're in a context that makes sense for them, then it's not bad. But if you get somebody like Art Donovan on commentary, he's like, all right, how much does this guy weigh? All right, how much does this guy weigh? All right, how much does this guy weigh? Who doesn't know shit from apple butter about professional wrestling? It makes everybody look bad.
Exactly. Again, there are things where if you get people involved, you better make sure they know what they're doing. Like WrestleMania 2, the Battle Royale.
Right. That was the football player one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And now sometimes football players do end up translating to being halfway decent wrestlers. Look at Kevin Green. Or even, honestly, even though his gimmicks have been terrible, you look at Happy Corbin. And he went from football and Goldberg. I know he's your favorite. But he drew buckets of money.
We forgot to mention that Hulk Hogan and Mr. T, Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper match was special guest refereed by Pat Patterson and Muhammad Ali.
Yes, sir. Muhammad Ali was there. And, well, actually, that's actually a good point, Sky. Because there's definitely different kinds of celebrities that add to or take away from the allure of professional wrestling. Like, for example, Inoki, going back to the days when New Japan Pro Wrestling or Japanese Pro Wrestling was actually good, Inoki had a cross-promotional fight with Muhammad Ali. And it drew tons of money.
That was really, really bad.
It might have been bad, but it didn't matter because the point was made and the money was drawn. You know, there was a time when if you did the interpromotional matches, they at least drew. You know, but until 2001 when we just got Drew Carey.
Well, it depends on what the celebrity is doing, how big the celebrity is, and more importantly, what they are contributing. For example, one of the biggest things that WWE ever did with a celebrity was Shawn Michaels versus Stone Cold Steve Austin with Mike Tyson appearing at ringside.
Yeah. And Tyson had that face-to-face with Austin that was major because Tyson was on top of the planet at that time. You know, he was huge, but he was still like a combat sports athlete, right? There's some people who are celebrity add-ins that at least fit the bill of being an athlete. And as a result, or at least they look like an athlete, and as a result, it's a lot softer of a pill to swallow. As opposed to Drew Carey. Or Jay Leno, for example.
Jay Leno.
Remember Jay Leno holding on a wrist lock to Hulk Hogan, who sold it like he was getting slammed by Andre?
Oof.
WCW, in a match that also had Dennis Rodman in it, but at least, again, he's an athlete. Karl Malone is an athlete. Mongo McMichael is an athlete. Lawrence Taylor is an athlete. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, exactly. The athlete guys, as long as they are respectful to business, they do very well. It's the people that they have no idea what to do with. Like, what the hell was that Young and the Restless actor doing at a backstage show at WWE in Los Angeles?
There was no need for that. There was no point to that whole thing. Nobody understood it. Nobody could hear him. And his whole point is like, yeah, I'm here to fuck Dawn Marie. All right, see ya. Thanks for getting on the show, D'Lo. That was so weird. Like, to this, like, we reviewed that last week, and I still don't understand what that was all about.
Right. There's also another category of celebrities, musicians, because sometimes when they come in, they do some really cool things, like Motorhead singing for Triple H multiple times, Living Colour singing for CM Punk on the way to his matches.
Yep. Yeah, well, it's one thing to do, like, a cameo for just being on the wrestling show. It's quite another to be like, okay, we're putting you in a full-fledged match, right? Like, Lawrence Taylor main eventing WrestleMania with Bam Bam Bigelow took balls. But thankfully, Bam Bam Bigelow was able to hot conceal a lot of Lawrence Taylor's weaknesses, but at least you could say Lawrence Taylor was athletic enough where it kind of made sense to wrestle. But they weren't delegitimizing the wrestlers by doing so.
Hold on. Which WrestleMania was that?
I want to say 11. Because I believe 12 was main evented by... It was 95, I think. So it was, WrestleMania 11. Because Brett won the title from Yoke in 94 after losing to Owen Hart.
WrestleMania 11 was the... So wait, hold on.
Not saying that was the biggest drawing WrestleMania of all time, but...
Okay, listen to this bullshit, okay?
We do that a lot on this program.
So, the match before this was Diesel with Pamela Anderson defeating Shawn Michaels with Sid and Jenna McCarthy for the WWE Championship?
Well, especially considering how well Diesel's run was going, I'm not surprised that did not main event the show. And honestly, because the ratings were so bad by that time in 95, put the celebrity in the main event. Might sell some more tickets.
I'm not only just the celebrities, but listen to this. Lawrence Taylor with Carl Banks, Ricky Jackson, Stephen Michael, Ken Norton Jr., Chris Spielman, and Reggie White, all football players, defeating Bam Bam Bigelow with King Kong Bundy, Ted DiBiase, Kama, Erwin R. Shyster, Tatanka, and Nikolai Volkov?
Well, it was like the football players against the wrestlers. That was how they build it. And it was kind of a glorified lumberjack match, but they kept it in the ring so there was no outside involvement. But again, exactly, there's no outside involvement. It's not like Jon Stewart costing John Cena the WWE title.
And I have just repressed that memory.
Yeah, that is a thing that happened.
Also, you heard his reasoning, right?
Oh, of course, because Jon Stewart needed the ratings.
No, because Jon Stewart, favorite wrestler growing up was Ric Flair, and he didn't want Ric Flair to lose the record.
Right. When we know how well that went in both scenarios.
Which, by the way, John Cena has still not broken the record.
No, he's tied the record. I don't think he ever will at this point. I think that they're comfortable with the tie, and that's going to be enough. Because there's no reason for John to at this point. They had the opportunity with Roman Reigns, and they didn't do it.
Yeah.
So my assumption is that John Cena just does not want it at this point.
Randy Orton gets to 16, and the title becomes vacant. John Cena versus Randy Orton one more time.
Oh, my God. Don't give him ideas, Sky. But you know what? No, it's probably going to be Bad Bunny who wins it 17 times. It's going to be some celebrity. But this is kind of the overall point here. It was one thing when the people having matches were they were athletes. If they were going to do moves, right? If they were going to actually act like they knew what they were doing, it was athletes who looked like they could actually go toe-to-toe with some of the wrestlers, even though they weren't wrestlers. Instead
Pat McAfee.
The Pat McAfee, perfect example. We buy Pat McAfee as somebody who could compete with wrestlers. I do not buy Chris fucking Pontius and Johnny Knoxville and fucking Wee Man as somebody who can compete with wrestlers. So why make them equals?
To humiliate the wrestlers. Again, the whole thing, Pat McAfee, former football player. But not only is he a former football player, he's a wrestling fan, and he legitimately has training with an old-time wrestler who knows what the hell he's doing.
Yeah, he hired Rip Rogers to train him in a barn for 7 years. That's fucking dedication. That I could buy that as Pat McAfee putting in the work and putting the reps in to respect the business, which it honestly feels like Pat McAfee respects the business more than half the wrestlers do at this point.
I mean, when he's on his show, he keeps kayfabe.
Yeah. He keeps the brand. Which is why he probably calls AEW Clown Town, because they don't give a shit about that, and Pat does. And he knows it, and he knows that he has to protect himself in that way. And that's the biggest discrepancy. There are some celebrity matches where they may not be the greatest things you've ever seen. They may not be stealing the show, but at least there are people who have the respect and understand what their role is and what their size is and what their image is to maintain their gimmick without disrespecting the people who are bringing them to that point. But now nobody gives a shit. Not even WWE anymore. At least Logan Paul looked athletic enough to where he could go toe-to-toe with the Mysterios. Because he had the celebrity boxing. He obviously trains. He had more of a build. He looked more cut than Miz did. And he was a hell of a heel. I'm not saying I like Logan Paul. But the fact is, if you're going to use somebody like that as a benchmark for what works and what doesn't, Logan Paul worked. Knoxville did not. And
boy, did it not.
And boy, did it not. It's one of the things that ruined me on modern wrestling. Because, God, that match was an embarrassment.
Well, if we're going to talk about things that ruin modern wrestling, we might as well just get into our match of the week, shall we?
Well, right before we do, I have to just mention Shaq. Because Shaq is an athlete. That's one of the rare exceptions where Shaq was the athlete. He's bigger than everybody else. And that match was just 20 years too late for Shaq to get involved.
Again, have we had seen Shaq wrestle back when he was around at, what was it, No Mercy, 2002?
Yeah, Unforgiven, No Mercy, time? Right around there. It would have been totally fine. Wouldn't have had a second thought.
Okay, but here's the question. Let's go back for a second. Unforgiven 2002. You want to build to a match with Shaq at No Mercy 2002, right?
Yep.
Which wrestler do you pick?
Well, you've got a lot of choices. It's got to be somebody who is solid enough to where he could conceal Shaq's inexperience. I'd have to imagine that Shaq would have had to have been putting in the work, but I imagine that he'd still be doing the basketball right now. It would have to be a heel who might be scrawnier, who would, I wouldn't put him in a Haas fight. I would put him in a smart-ass heel who could get good heat. You know who I'd put him in with? Chris Jericho.
Ooh.
Chris Jericho.
But that means that Shaq would have wrestled Chris Jericho for the Intercontinental title?
Oh, no, I would have had Jericho drop the belt. That would have been part of the build, as he would have lost it on television to somebody, and that would have been part of the reason why.
Jericho did drop the title to Kane before Kane and Katie Vick and Triple H happened.
Yeah, so then there would be a legitimate excuse there to where he'd have the out to be like, all right. Or if you wanted to go with a Haas fight, Big Show was about to win the WWE title off Brock Lesnar.
Oh, you could have done the Big Show Shaq match.
There was the time. I'm not saying the Big Show was the world's greatest wrestler at that point, because he wasn't, but there you had the opportunity there. Jericho with the smart-ass heel who could have run around and played chicken shit. That would have worked. Or if you wanted to do the big Haas fight there, didn't have to be a long match. I mean, look how much that Big Show got out of Money Mayweather. He could have done it.
Right. But let's go back a second. Chris Jericho wins his match against Ric Flair. He starts taunting the crowd. He sees Shaq, goes over to them, and Shaq pushes him away with one hand. Then Chris Jericho can make a joke about Shaq. Shaq gets mad, costs Chris Jericho the Intercontinental title against Kane.
And now Jericho's got something to bitch about for 3 weeks to sell the match. And Shaq can go on a winning streak in basketball or whatever it is. Jericho shows up at a Laker game. You could have done something with it. I'm just saying, that you could have made that work at that point instead of Jade Cargill just interrupting Cody Rhodes for no reason, being like, "I've got a friend. His name is Shaq. He wants to fight you." Brandy cutting the promo of a lifetime on her, and then we don't see Shaq until he ends up showing up at that match, where he goes through the table, gets put into a hospital, the lights go out, the ambulance turns red, and then he just walks away. That's opportunity lost.
I did cut out.
But opportunity. Well, they should have cut that out from being part of the show at all. But instead, we
By
get...
the way, no, continue.
No. Please explain.
During the middle of that, my Wi-Fi cut out because Shaq sat down and broke everything.
That's right.
That's Chris Jericho.
That's right. Well, it could have been either of them at this
Chris
point.
Jericho is so fat when he sits down, half a tsunami starts.
Half of a tsunami starts. And speaking of a Cartoon Network, this match was goddamn laughable. Roll that intro.
What time is it?
It's the fight, it's the brawl, it's the match of the week. It's tonight, watch along with the son of a beat. It's one fall, the down for the 1, 2, and 3. So don't stall, hang on to the edge of your seat. We got a punch and a flip and a powerbomb too. All the moves and the stars are all under review. See the baby face cheered and the heels get heat. This is wrestling at its peak. It's the match of the week. That's right, folks. It is the match of the week. And after all of the bitch moaning and complaining we've been doing about modern wrestling, look at that. The only match we could find that was a full match on YouTube was Bad Bunny. It's Damien Priest and Bad Bunny versus The Miz and Morrison from WrestleMania 37, Night 1. Sky, what did you think about this match?
Next time I pick the match of the week.
Well, you tried. We tried to find a better celebrity match. Wasn't your fault. Wasn't my fault. It's just what we had available to us.
Yeah.
I agree. Now I have my notes here from last year, and I had these on me as I was watching this match. Did you watch the 8 minutes, and I mean that literally, folks, the 8 minutes of Hopping Bunny entrance?
Cringe.
It was so cringe that I cringed so bad that my head hit the fast forward button and I skipped through all of it.
Okay, here's the thing, is that I was watching it. Some of the guys in the bunny costume, you could see the opening where you could see their backs.
Yeah, who would have thought that they weren't real bunnies?
Cheap costumes.
Damn.
Cheap costumes. Hey, let me get through these entrances, okay?
Yeah.
Then, John Morrison and The Miz start rapping.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
They rap their way to the ring, then get in the middle of the ring, and then rap with all the bunnies.
Yep. They sure did.
Damien Priest gets a really cool entrance, which is his standard entrance. It's not anything special.
And
then,
boy, did the fans react like he wasn't anything special.
And then Bad Bunny shows up on a truck with lighting and shit, and he stole Seth Rollins' coat because he borrowed that Drip Man gimmick.
Yeah, he was doing it before it was cool, but I ask again, as I did at the time, who thought that was a good idea?
No idea.
We have no answers. Thanks, Vince.
Bad Bunny was... He actually kind of does look like Seth Rollins in that outfit, which is a little disconcerting.
Well, especially because Bunny's way less athletic, which is why he was wearing that black track like jumpsuit, because they knew if he took his shirt off, he'd look skinnier than a Dixon Ticonderoga number 2 pencil that you use on Scantrons.
So much so that The Miz didn't want to wrestle Damien Priest. He wanted to wrestle Bad Bunny.
Yeah, and then Bad Bunny makes The Miz look like Brock Lesnar. and
yeah, because The Miz was actually still ripped at the time. Now, here's the thing. Bad Bunny gets a punch on The Miz, surprises him, and then The Miz attempts to do a collar and elbow tie-up while Bad Bunny dodges him and then does a waist lock. So we're half and half for a collar and elbow tie-up.
Yeah, we'll take a 0.5 on this if we're gonna call it.
Although you could argue it's smart that Bad Bunny went for the waist lock because he knew he wasn't going to beat The Miz in a collar and elbow tie-up.
Well, I mean, it's fair. I mean, at least to Bad Bunny's credit, throughout this match, you could tell he was trying hard. And I will not fault Bad Bunny for trying hard. He was trying to sell. He was trying to land the moves where they looked effective. It's just that his physique is just so pencil thin, it's hard to take any of it seriously.
He doesn't have the muscle tone nor the height. Like Logan Paul is not the most ripped guy, but because he's so tall, he can get away with some of his things.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And Pat McAfee is still in shape. Like, he still looks good.
Yeah, oh, no doubt. That dude is on the grind all the time. And again, at least Bunny was trained. At least Bunny was training and, like, took it seriously. I'm not saying that he didn't. It just, I don't know what this was. But it did. I thought that the biggest problem I had with this match is that Bad Bunny was in it for 14 of the 18 minutes it went.
And he was trying to do Rey Mysterio's moveset.
Yeah. And some of it looked good, some of it didn't. Some of his strikes landed. A lot of them didn't.
Shane McMahon, is it you?
Yeah, I would say that Bad Bunny looked a little better than Shane McMahon.
Is that more of an indictment on Bad Bunny, Shane McMahon, or professional wrestling?
Can't it be all three?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. It definitely was. Did you notice that Miz throws a punch like a 5th grade toddler? Where, like, he goes to throw a punch, but instead of actually, like, having the fist go towards his face, he, like, flips his whole wrist up, so it makes it look like the Chinese cat. He goes, yeah!
It's Miz being a WWE trained guy who... The way that they train how to throw their punches is not the way that you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, no, it just looks bad. Unfortunately, Bad Bunny's shit looked better than Miz's shit.
Yes and no. Like, the Miz tries to throw Bad Bunny underneath the ring ropes, and Bad Bunny hits the middle rope because he can't get to the bottom rope.
Yeah, that was kind of rough. And they get, of course, back slap.
But then Bad Bunny does a head scissors, which, again, the Rey Mysterio moveset.
Yep, and sadly, Bad Bunny was the most overhuman being of the 4 of these guys. So all of his shit landed and it got reactions. It's just, I wouldn't have shined him like this. Because then when Damien Priest gets a comeback later, it means so much less. Like, if you were going to do this, why not have Damien Priest get double teamed by these two and then have Bad Bunny surprise everybody and actually make something of a comeback? If you're going to give him this much offense, do it in a meaningful way. I don't think this was done in a meaningful way. As much as Priest should be the guy getting the comeback, we still got a lot of offense in from Bad Bunny before that point to make it so that the comeback really didn't have any effect.
Either that, or you just do more combined tagging. Like, if Bad Bunny and Priest were tagging in and out, and then they took advantage of Priest, so Bad Bunny had to be the guy to do the comeback.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not to say this still wasn't a smartly agented match, because it still was, given what Bad Bunny knew and didn't know. But there was a lot of this that just was nah. It was just a lot to give to a first time in the ring celebrity who's that small. And the perception kind of killed it, for me at least.
Because again, it's one thing when it's an athlete like a football player or a boxer to come in and wrestle. It's another thing when it's a literal rapper.
Yeah. And to perform on an equal level or better than the wrestlers. You know, because now it makes all the wrestlers look like chumps if this guy can do the same shit that everybody else does.
I wouldn't call it equal because some of this was bad.
Yeah, well, there was a good chunk of this that was bad. We get a John Morrison spin-a-rooney, to which Booker T murmured something about it. I couldn't tell you what it was. It was like, spin-a-rooney is my move. And when he did that, it just made me go, man, I'd love to see John Morrison versus Booker T.
Yeah.
Not now. God, no, not now. But I mean, in
is this
prime?
John Morrison teasing Booker T because he's on commentary and he wants to have that match?
Yeah, but it's not like he was going to come out of retirement for that. So, like, it would still looked cool, but I'm like, okay, but was there a purpose to that? Other than just saying, hey, I can do a spin-a-rooney. And did anyone in the crowd put together that Booker was on commentary for that?
Not really.
Exactly. And the more that this went on, the less heat it got, the less reaction it got, until Bad Bunny made his own comeback, so he could get a flat-footed tag to Damien Priest that hit some moves, and the crowd did not give a fuck.
I mean, it wasn't his. He didn't really make the comeback on his own. He just did like a move or two in order to get the tag.
Well, that was enough. I mean, he still punched both athletes. They both went down, and then he hit a tornado DDT. It wasn't like he was out and then like really hurting, and it was this desperation clutch out of nowhere. It was punch you and punch you. Look at me. I'm doing fine. Tornado DDT. That to me is making your own comeback. So that the actual hot tag did not feel anywhere near as important as it could have.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, that yawn is exactly what I was starting to do once Damien Priest came in. That's not Priest's fault. It's just the way that match was going. And then, of course, we get the double team moves. You know, Bad Bunny and Damien Priest do a coordinated Falcon Arrow, which Damien Priest did fine, and Bad Bunny had a really tough time keeping Miz in the air.
No, Morrison.
Morrison in the air, excuse me. Because, you know, pencil thin. And this, but what's then, of course, we have to get a dive because it's wrestling and this is modern WWE. So we got to make sure the celebrity gets a big dive in so that everyone can remember how Stephen Amell did it. And yeah, exactly. And this just, and then it just started going on and on and on.
Well, it's not the dive. It's not the dive that killed me. Like, okay, Priest goes for his reckoning. He gets hit by the skull crushing finale, which Bunny stops. Morrison grabs Bad Bunny off the apron and the Canadian Destroyer.
Yeah. And you know that was done just to be like, hey, look what Bad Bunny can do.
Like, there are believable moves. Like, the Falcon Arrow was testing me, but the Canadian Destroyer was the move that he should not have done.
Yeah. And it was really just done just so they could showcase that Bad Bunny can do moves like the wrestlers, thus delegitimizing the wrestlers. Even though I am so over the Canadian Destroyer, if I never saw another one in wrestling again, it'd be too soon.
I mean, again, it was really, really cool when he did it, but it's not a move he should be able to do.
Yeah, I don't like the concept of Bad Bunny doing a Canadian Destroyer. You know, that's...
And then they do the electric chair and the dive by Bad Bunny. At the very least, when Priest and Bad Bunny did their tags, it was always on the hands.
Yeah, again, you know, kind of going back, like even when Bad Bunny did his dive, the first thing he did was go back to selling his ribs. He tried in this matchup. I'm not saying he didn't try. I will give an A for effort. But for the size, the perception is reality in this situation. What should Bad Bunny be doing versus what can he do? And we got to see what Bad Bunny could do, not what he should do. And, you know, I respect Bunny's commitment. I totally respect Bunny's commitment, but how ludicrous was it for everyone to say, oh, come on, Bunny, Bad Bunny, this is Bunny. Although I do have to say one little moment of that made me laugh was the Miz was like, Miz gave Bad Bunny a big boot during the middle of the heat, and he goes, how's that for a lucky foot? And I'm like, okay, that was clever, but all in all, the crowd was into Bad Bunny. They didn't really care about anybody else. I didn't care about any of this match. It went on way too long, as they always do. And this is a showcase of how using a celebrity as an equal to the wrestlers can end up hurting your overall image.
Yeah.
Exactly. And see, Skylar, the way that you sighed in pain and exasperation and just groaning of absolute sickening nausea of professional wrestling in the modern era is kind of like an arrow soaring through the air and then cascading to the ground. And somebody who knows how to shoot proverbial arrows is our superstar spotlight this week, because we have chosen Punishment Martinez, also known as Damien Priest.
Because look at the other options in the match that we could have picked.
Well, I'm pretty sure we've talked about Morrison. I'm pretty sure neither of us really want to get into talking about The Miz again, because we've had quite a lot and quite enough of The Miz in general.
Right, and we were not going to talk about Bad Bunny's rapping career because neither of us care about his rapping career. So, Punishment Martinez it is, a.k.a. Damien Priest.
If you want to hear 44 songs that start with I've just given you the entirety of Bad Bunny's discography. You're welcome. So, instead, we go to a man who really made his reputation in Ring of Honor back when Ring of Honor could make stars.
Not only that, but I didn't realize this. He's a very late career starter.
Yeah, he started pretty late. I don't know the exact age that he broke in, but he's not a youngin'.
Hang on. 18 plus 14. So he's 30...
He's 39.
Well, he's 39 now, but he started when he was 32.
Yeah, well, actually, and that's pretty impressive, given that he was, given that you started 32 and at 39 you're on a tag team with Edge, given WWE's messed up booking, but that doesn't really matter. We'll get to that. But he started early at the Monster Factory, and then eventually signed on with Ring of Honor in late 2014 and showed up in 2015 under his original name of Luis.
Well, Luis Martinez, which is his real name.
Correct. And obviously he didn't really get himself over until he was allied with a very, very good man to get over with. The one and only Kevin Sullivan.
And BJ Whitmer.
Who, by all accounts, is one of Ring of Honor's top guys, top veterans, is BJ Whitmer. But if there's anybody to sit under the learning tree with to establish yourself as the kind of demonic evil presence or the badass presence with really thick eyeliner, it's Kevin Sullivan, all right.
Yep, and BJ Whitmer is a very solid hand in the ring who can teach you how to wrestle.
Yeah, and especially with that, because he started wrestling against Steve Corino, who is also a good guy to learn a lot of wrestling from. And obviously he took to the ring very quickly as far as learning the ins and outs the right way. And, we've seen quite a few matches of Damien Priest where that he knows how to work.
I mean, the man has always had a good background because he learned martial arts. He learned how to wrestle when he was at a young age. It was just, he waited until a very late stage career to join. But as we've learned from DDP, anybody can start wrestling. And as long as you can pick it up, you can do it.
That's right. And as long as you're dedicated enough. And, we took some time to shit on New Japan, but it was a big part of his career was when he was teaming up with Los Ingobernables de Japón before, Josh again got a hold of him.
Yep. Wrestling against guys like Chris Sabin, Jeff Cobb, Adam Page at New Japan.
Yep, New Japan. Again, he teamed up with Los Ingobernables to beat Dalton Castle, who is somebody we honestly should examine because he's not the worst. He's got definitely a flamboyant personality. I do think that he's got the capabilities of being a star. His in-ring wrestling is okay, but he's somebody, there's something missing, and we should examine him a little bit further. But he's wrestled with Tanahashi, and with Takahashi, and Tetsuya Naito, and Silas Young, the last real man, former ACPW stalwart. And there was a time, at least from what I can remember, without reading the wikis, that Punishment Martinez was really one of the few things that made you interested in Ring of Honor at a time when they were scrounging for new talent to get over.
Yeah, there was a lot of issues with Ring of Honor at that time, but Punishment Martinez was one of the bright spots until he got picked up by WWE.
And what's interesting about that is on NXT house shows, when he first got in, he was still wrestling as Punishment Martinez until they decided, nope, that sucks. Let's name him something else so we could trademark it.
Well, here's the thing, is that he was wrestling as Punishment Martinez for the last part of 2018 into 2019 until he debuted as Damien Priest. I like Punishment Martinez as a name, but Damien Priest I think is better.
I think it more fit the flavor of what NXT was still doing at that point, which was that grunginess, which is what really Damien Priest was. He was kind of like, we mentioned it before, like kind of a modern-aged biker taker.
Yep.
Is what they billed him as, and it worked. Especially with the feuds that he had. Even when it wasn't against people like Pete Dunne and Killian Dane, or any, when he really started developing himself as an interest. Especially remember that triple threat. I think it was a triple threat with Keith Lee and Dominik Dijakovic.
For the NXT North American Championship.
Yeah, that he ended up winning. And I remember his run as NXT North American Champion was pretty good. They were one of the few things you really wanted to see on that show was what he was going to do.
I think one of our favorite reactions was we did NXT one or two times, and we're like, and Damien Priest won the NXT North American Championship, and then he jumps into a jacuzzi with two women and some alcohol, and I'm just like, man, that's cool. I want to be Damien Priest.
Exactly. Although I thought it was funny that he jumped in like completely fully clad in leather. I'm like, well, you just ruined that outfit.
Hey, when you're the champion, you can afford
Yeah,
leather.
who cares? You got the money now. You're getting the boost. Thankfully, he didn't have the strap on him to ruin the belt. But still.
Plus the way that things were going with that night and the alcohol and the ladies, we know he would use the leather at some point.
That's right. Yeah, you know about that. Although not offensively like Sammy Guevara and Ty Conti.
But he was one of those guys who was really, really liked. In particular, when he was wrestling against Finn Balor, he got big props from some Triple H.
Well, because Triple H knew he saw what we all saw, is that this guy has all the makings to be a star. And by rights, should have been.
Well, let's continue on, because he goes to WWE. He debuts in the 2021 Royal Rumble. He eliminates John Morrison and The Miz.
Right.
And then the night after, he had the Bad Bunny debut on Miz TV with... Basically, the whole thing was that this was the culmination. This match was the culmination of a Damien Priest and Bad Bunny feud with The Miz and John Morrison.
And what a terrible way to debut Damien Priest. Way to make him feel less valuable from the start. But that's what they love to do. They love taking somebody who feels important and making sure that they are not important. That is WWE's primary objective.
If it wasn't this that was going to kill him, it was going to be the zombie match.
Oh my god, I totally forgot about the zombie match. Right, because I didn't watch it. Because the second I saw that the zombies were going to be the Lumberjacks, I'm like, nope, not happening. I am not taking a part at that one.
And that's why when he wrestled that match against Sheamus at SummerSlam for the United States Championship, and you said at the time that he had the match of the night.
Yeah?
Which he did, because that match with Sheamus for the U.S. title, it got a crowd that did not give a fuck about it to caring and cheering for him when he won.
And all the credit in the world to Sheamus, too, because Sheamus has kind of a gift of doing that. Being so wholly, unimportant, nobody cares, but then 2/3 of the way into a Sheamus match, you're like, well, damn, this is actually pretty good. and it was good. His win with the United States title was good, and then he just started being bipolar.
Well, the problem is that he has the curse of the mid-card champion of WWE, and that you become a hot act, you win the U.S. or Intercontinental title, and then they don't do anything with you with it.
Then they decided that let's just have him be bipolar. Well, he'll be nice at some points, but then Rick Boogs plays his guitar and he's just going to get himself intentionally disqualified. Why? Because fuck you, that's why. And that was their whole thing. It's like, and then Nakamura, beat him for that, and then he just started doing this back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until finally... Until he lost
the title to Finn Balor.
And then was going to try and win it back, but he got too period-like and then just lost it again. But now I feel like with what he's doing now, there's at least some hope. Because he's partnered with Edge. Even though this gimmick is basically a roided-up House of Black, I still think that being partnered with the Rated R Superstar can only do him good.
Do you know the name of their tag team?
I'm afraid.
Judgment Day.
Well, they're not using it for a pay-per-view name anymore, so fair enough.
Because according to Edge in the promo, when me and Damien Priest appear, it will be everybody's Judgment Day.
I mean, fair enough, I guess.
I don't mind the idea of that as a tag team because it's someone from Priest to learn from. If you're going to learn anything, it's going to be from Edge.
Yeah. And I think that Edge, at this point, deep down, Edge knew that and sees that same potential that Triple H and you and I did in Damien Priest and wants to be like, okay, if they're just going to bury him to oblivion, at least let me be that oblivion so that he can learn something and maybe take something with the rub. And I hope that he does. I genuinely want the best for Damien Priest because even though he's only been in the business, legitimately broken in for 7 years, if he takes care of his body well enough, he could go for another 10. It's just, will they kill his passion before that time?
He's one of the guys that they clearly want to see get better. The question with Damien Priest isn't his floor, it's his ceiling. How high can he go?
Yeah. And
because I said it after the Sheamus match. There is the potential for Damien Priest to eventually become a world champion. Do I think it's going to happen in the next year? No.
No.
Year or two? Possibly. Depending on what happens with his partnership with Edge and how much he improves from the learning tree of Edge.
And, if they don't rush this, they could turn Damien Priest into a mega babyface if we get a Damien Priest versus Edge match if they cultivate it correctly. Or at least semi-correctly. They don't even have to do it fully right, because they can't. But there's the potential there. But you can only ride on potential for so long. But I still have hope for Damien Priest, because he's in with the right people.
Again, he's being carefully protected. He's given prominent slots. You do not give a celebrity a tag team partner unless you have trust that that wrestler is going to do well.
Yes. Even though he was only in it for 4 minutes. But yes.
So, are they protecting Bad Bunny or Damien Priest?
Well, who got the surprise entrant in the 2022 Royal Rumble?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Shit.
But that's all in the past now, because truly it will be Judgment Day who casts the judgment on Damien Priest's career. If they do it right, they could use him. They have something with him. But we can only hope that incompetence does not prevail on this day. Oh, indeed. Well, folks, this is One Modern Wrestling. Remember last week when we finished Unforgiven 2002, and we're like, man, I'm refreshed. I feel great. This has been wonderful. And then we finished talking about Modern Wrestling, and Skylar and I are both,
Which is why next week, when I get to pick a match, because I'm picking the next match, Sean.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. You can host the whole damn show if you want. And it won't have to be about Rob Van Dam either. It could
Who
be.
knows? I may pick a Rob Van Dam match.
Hey, you never know. But the only way you're going to know, folks, is if you like, is if you share, if you comment, and you subscribe. And don't forget to switch that button to all so that every single time that the Court-Martail podcast posts, you will be the first to know about it. Because the thing that we love more than anything else is to keep you informed on everything Court-Martail podcast. Sky, we did it. Look at the time. We're at another one. It's time to go to our first commercial break.
That it is. And we will see you all when you like, share, and subscribe to Court-Martail podcast.
But until then, folks, we'll be right back right after this.